Greetings, quilters. We made this quilt for our 60th wedding anniversary, and we want to show you how we made it. We were looking for quilt ideas and saw this YouTube quilt show tour by Rachel. In her video tour, we saw these designs. We liked the shape. When we saw this block, we realized that it was a Fussy Cut block, and that's what made it so appealing. Our first step was to design the block. We used our EQ8 program and created this block design. The next step was to create a template for each piece. We printed each piece for the block, taped it to template plastic, drilled the corners, and cut the template out with scissors. We also made templates from 1/4-inch plastic. Cardboard from a shoebox could be used for this template. This template is for the center diamond pieces. This template is for the triangles. This template is for the irregular pentagon. This template is for an irregular quadrangle. And we needed a template for the triangle to square the block. We always build a test block to make sure that the templates will make the block correctly. We designed the quilt layout. From the design, we calculated the number of each piece needed. The holes in the template are used to mark the exact corners of each piece. We have found that painter's tape will keep the template from sliding on the fabric. We tape as close to the marking holes as possible to hold the fabric while marking it. The rotary mat didn't seem to be as helpful as we had hoped. We select the feature that we want to use for the Fussy Cut piece. We use the marking holes to align the template. We mark the repeat of the pattern with painter's tape to ensure that we have the correct number of pieces. For the center, where the 8 diamond shapes come together in the center of the block, we selected an easily identifiable mark on the fabric, like this berry. The pattern selected is not exactly the same size throughout all of the fabric, so the other end of the template needs to maintain the correct alignment. We use the template to draw the cutting line for each part and then roughly cut out the parts. Here you can see the cutting lines drawn on the fabric. We use the rotary cutter and ruler to cut the part to the sewing size. Use the selected mark as the starting point on the back or the wrong side of the fabric. Mark all of the corners. By putting a piece of painter's tape on the top side of the template can quickly be moved to the next piece. These are the start and stop sewing marks. All pieces need to be marked. All parts of the same shape and color are bagged waiting to be sewn. We are ready to start sewing, and this is what the center of the block should look like when sewn. We start by pinning the diamond shapes face to face. It helps to keep the pin away from the presser foot area. This way we do not need to move the pin until after sewing has started. Be sure to backstitch both ends of all seams. Crease the seam in the same direction on all pieces. Put 2 of these sewn pieces together face to face and pin using the marks same as before. It really helps to keep the bulk of the center controllable if you start sewing exactly on the mark. You can see the sewing mark in the eye of the sewing foot. Here you can see how the seams come together. This is a good time to trim the ears. Join the 2 halves face to face, align the dots, and pin. Check and align centers so that all seams come together and that they nest exactly. Pin the centers before sewing. It may be best to pin on either side of the center to prevent the pins from moving the fabric. Sew from one side to the center. I like to remove the piece and check the alignment. Turn the part over and sew from the other side back to the center. Make corrections as needed. After sewing Finger press all the seams in the same direction, and the center seam should look like this. The center of the diamonds should look like this. We sew the triangles between the diamond points, match the sewing marks, and then pin them. This triangle piece needs 3 pins to keep the fabric aligned while sewing. Now it's time to sew the irregular pentagon to the triangle. We also need 3 pins in this seam to prevent the fabric from moving. These side seams are easy to miss. We are ready to sew the irregular pentagon to the irregular quadrangle. You know, the 2 funny shaped pieces. Sew each side from sewing mark to sewing mark. Finish sewing all of these pieces to finish the block. This is a good time to press the blocks. To square the block, we need to sew the triangles on. Some of the blocks will need a triangle with half triangles sewn on them. We sew the partial blocks around the sides to finish the blocks. Make sure that all of the seams nest together properly before sewing the blocks together. Here we have added the partial blocks around the sides and sewn the blocks together diagonally. All of the blocks have been sewn together to finish the quilt top. The corners and points have come together quite well. Now it is time to straighten the edge of the quilt top. We cut the edges straight using a cutting mat and 2 rulers. We align the cutting ruler and another ruler, making the cut, and stagger slide the rulers to make the rest of the cuts. The excess is cut off. The sides are straight and ready for the next step. We fold the border pieces and crease the centers, align the marks, pin and sew the border pieces together. We check the borders to make sure that they are long enough. We center crease all 4 sides of the quilt top. We align centers of the border to the center of the quilt top. Pin and sew. We mitered the borders and the quilt top is ready to be assembled with the back and batting and then off to the quilter. The quilt is quilted and the binding is finished. The quilt back matches very well. All quilts need an identification tag that includes who made the quilt and when it was made and any special message. This is the center block with partial blocks around the edges. There are 8 of this block. There are 4 of this block. We thank you for watching our slideshow. We hope that this presentation will inspire you in your projects for your families and friends. Thank you for watching.